All right, so I found this video um, when I was kind of just going around, and I whew, I thought it was an interesting topic here. What is Big Green? Apparently, this is going to be their anti-climate change video. It looks like. So let's see. Big Big Green. Oh
You've
boy.
heard a lot about big oil,
Yep.
big pharma,
Mm-hmm.
big tech, and all the
Yep.
other big bad players out there.
Yep.
I want to talk to you about the biggest, baddest one of them all. This Goliath doesn't deal in billions, it deals in trillions. I'm talking about Big Green.
Um. So Big Green is not a thing. Um. I think that should be evidenced by the fact that America really is just starting to kind of get its sustainable energy thing going. I mean, I know there are cities out there that are renewable, but overall, like what, 85% of Texas, for example, is like oil and coal. Like there's no big green here. Like this isn't a thing.
Yes, the environmental movement. It's the richest, most powerful big in the world right now. Nothing else
No, it's not. No, the environmental movement is not the most powerful, richest movement in the world. It's not. It's not. If it were the most powerful, there wouldn't oil wouldn't be the biggest thing in the country by far.
even.
Also, you're conflating, I think, potentially, if I'm understanding this correctly, he's comparing a movement of like environmental activists to the oil industry. So that's interesting.
Comes close. Until we see it for what it is and rein it in, it's going to get even bigger.
Oh God,
And as is usually the case, bigger is not always better. You see, Big Green wants to take over your life. It has to. This,
what does this mean?
this makes perfect sense.
No, it
Big
doesn't. What does that even mean?
Green, after all, intends to save the planet from oblivion.
Yeah, because climate change. There literally was just a study done like that got released the other day. Like literally, I mean, this was made in December, but like it was released a few days ago as of when I'm recording this, March 16th, 2021. That said that if climate change continues on the current path that it is, the tropic segments of the world may become inhospitable for human life. And let me tell you, there's definitely a lot of people in the tropic zones of this planet. So if you want to try and figure out how to move them out of the center third of the Earth, I mean, more power to you, dude. But I think it might just be easier if we just stop using oil.
Your freedom would seem to be a small price to pay.
You, what is your freedom at stake? Freedom to what? Freedom to use oil?
To accomplish its mission, Big Green needs two things: money and power.
I thought you just said it was the richest and most powerful movement. Doesn't it already have those, according to you?
It already has a lot of both,
Oh, of
but it's
course.
hungry for much more.
Of
Who do
course
we
it
mean
does.
when we say Big Green? We mean the major organizations that set the agenda for the movement. This would include, among dozens, Greenpeace, 350.org,
Okay.
Nature Conservancy, Sierra Club, World Wildlife Fund, and of course, the politicians, bureaucrats, corporations, and media outlets who support and promote their agenda.
Um, so if the World Wildlife Fund and Nature Conservancy are your villains in the story, you might maybe need to reconsider your story. Um, Not to necessarily say that they're blameless. I don't know anything about them. Maybe they ethically do some weird things, like filter money in weird ways or something. I don't know. But overall, the World Wildlife Fund, Nature Conservancy, places like that are really good for the environment and good for helping keep the animals safe. Like if they're your villains, you're probably you're probably in trouble. Also, I can't think of many big corporations that are part of this movement, Big Green, unless it's like companies that are trying to like show off, like companies that can cut their carbon emissions really easily, and so they're trying to flex. But like, really, I mean, otherwise, it doesn't get talked about in the news. You know,
Before we get any deeper into this, let's stipulate a few
a
things.
few deeper.
The climate is changing. It appears, though we can't be sure, to be slowly warming.
Wrong. It's warming quickly, and we are sure of that. That is the overwhelming scientific consensus. This, the reality of it. Look, graph of planet temperature. Look at this. Look at this. Let's find it. Look at warming. Wait, oh shoot. Reset. Okay, look. 2010, we were at 0.65. Now we're at 1.02. That's not look, 100 years ago we were at negative 4.3. We've gone up 1.5 degrees already in 100 years. That doesn't happen. Like, that doesn't happen.
If it continues to warm, it could cause serious environmental problems sometime in the distant future.
Significant ones by 2100. So if that's distant, I guess.
Industrialization probably plays a role in this
Industrialization plays a huge role,
warming
the
process.
primary role.
Reasonable people should be able to agree on this. Democrat leader Nancy Pelosi and Republican leader Newt Gingrich actually once sat down together and said as much in a public service ad they made in the 1990s. But Big Green has no interest in being reasonable.
What?
Reasonable doesn't get you money.
What? You're
Reasonable
tying
doesn't get
this
you
to
power.
what?
So let's talk about the money.
What?
Greenpeace, Nature Conservancy, World Wildlife Fund, and Sierra Club
Oh
all
my
have
god.
financial assets in the 100 to $300 million range.
Yes,
Name
they're
a
big
Fortune 500
organizations.
company, and chances are they're writing big checks to Big Green.
Let's see. 404 billion dollars for Shell oil alone. So if we combine all four of these at the $300 million, you get 1.2 billion, which is 1/400th of the worth of Shell Oil Company all by itself. So yeah, sure, big green.
Banking giant Citigroup, for example, has committed $100 billion to combat climate change.
Good.
But the real money is at
Still only a fourth of what Shell Oil is worth.
the government level. In 2009, the Obama administration directed more than $110 billion to be
Good.
spent on renewable energy investments under the American Recovery and
And then we can add that number onto our total, and it is now at half the price of Shell Oil.
Reinvestment Act alone. What the taxpayer got for this investment, other than long forgotten $500 million boondoggles like Solyndra, is hard to say. According to the best economic
The investment is not in necessarily giving you something, it's in saving your planet, which is something that you should want, but clearly you do not.
models, the Paris Climate Accord will cost the world $1 to $2 trillion every year.
So if that's true, it's just kind of the cost of doing business. Like, it would have been easier if we could have solved this sooner, but, I mean, oil companies kind of buried the evidence of climate change for a few decades going into the 1990s and the 2000s. So, um, now we've kind of got to make big changes to fix it. So, unfortunately, the cost, if that is accurate, is just necessary. Yeah, unless you don't want to plan it, I guess, which is an option. Well,
Total cost
kind
for the
of.
Green New Deal $52 trillion minimum. But money is only a means to an end. The
I'm
end is
skeptical about
power.
that price,
The
but
power to
we'll just move
transform
on.
society into what they think.
The power, it's not about the power. This isn't some kind of power trip. It's a necessary action. Like if the current system functions totally fine, nobody would be like, "Oh, we need to change it." I mean, maybe they would. Maybe there would be like things that needed to change if climate change wasn't a thing. But like, this isn't some kind of power
It
hungry
should be.
decision, really.
That's what this is really about. Here's how Shoykat Chakrabarty, the architect of the Green New Deal, described it to the Washington Post. It wasn't originally a climate thing at all. We really think of it as a how do you change the entire economy thing. Maybe you like all this.
Yeah, because
That's
our
fine.
economy
But don't
functions
pretend it's
on
about protecting the
it
environment.
literally is.
Chakrabarty was being honest. you should be too. It's about transferring more and more power to the government at every level: federal, state, local.
By making green energy. And it really is about protecting the environment. There are things that you need to change about the economy to also protect the environment, though. Like, it kind of needs both because our economy kind of functions on a lot of things that are not great for the environment.
And the way to get the power is to gin up scary scenarios. The planet is burning. The
It
seas are
is.
rising.
It
We're all going to be dead soon unless we.
Not all of us. No, that's not. Nobody's saying. I mean, the seas are rising. That's true because the ice caps are melting. That's true. Kind of bold of you to say the planet's not on fire after, well, in 2020, you would have had like one of the biggest wildfires ever in Australia in January. Um, so that was a thing. That kind of happened.
Listen to those masters of disaster: Al Gore, Bill McKibben, and Greta Thunberg.
Greta Thunberg. Greta is actually a very impressive youth advocate for what she believes in because she's so committed to the cause. She like doesn't even use carbon in her transportation. Greta literally does everything that you like purity test mock like left wing political leaders for. Like Bernie Sanders flies around on a plane, and you're like, how dare you if you think the climate is real problem. And Greta literally does all of it, and you still mock her just because she's like speaking out about a problem. You just don't care about the problem.
Thunberg. And what have all their horror stories led to? A generation of young people who have nightmares about a planet burning up around them.
This isn't the fault of them. This is the fault of this stuff would be happening regardless. Like youth people would still be terrified about the planet regardless of these people because this is still happening. These people are just trying to advocate for change. It's not like without them advocating, maybe nobody would know. I mean, people would still probably know though. Be kind of hard not to notice, like what's the solution? Like without them, it's just nothing happens and people just panic anyways. Like, come on, bro.
Poor people who pay higher energy bills than they need to because of massive subsidies for wind and solar power.
Oh,
Millions of birds, including endangered ones,
of
dying,
course.
sliced to pieces by wind turbines. Yet, in the midst of all the planet is burning fear mongering, the world is cleaner, healthier, and richer than it has ever been.
Richer's not relevant to environmental safety. Healthier, I don't know what in the world you're making that claim off of. The oceans are dying, the coral reefs are dying. Um, Pollution is pretty high, lots of carbon in the atmosphere. The planet's heating up rapidly. I
Deaths
don't
from
know.
natural disasters are at all time low.
Okay, but that's because of technology. That doesn't mean that the Earth is calm. Clearly, it's not. Texas literally just got hit by like a super blizzard,
Here's why:
polar vortex.
human beings adapt when faced with climate problems.
There's only so much you can adapt to certain things. Like if the temperature in the tropics is always in the hundreds at like min, like you're not gonna be able to live there. Like it's just not gonna happen. Like it's so hot already down there. Like hundreds, and it's like, oh yeah, it's just like 80. Feels like a 90 something. Like at lowest. Like you're not gonna. You can't. There's only so much you can adapt to.
We're
You
really
know
good
like
at it.
it's not.
We've been doing it for thousands of years. Sea levels rising, build taller and better seawalls.
No.
That's what the Netherlands did. A good chunk of the country, including its international airport, is below sea level.
Yeah, and that's a
Need more
problem.
water? Spread the gospel of drip irrigation and desalinization. Israel has more water than it needs, and it's in the middle of a desert. Need clean energy?
No.
Build more nuclear power plants. Sweden gets half of its energy from nuclear.
Sure.
None of these simple, practical solutions makes much of an impact
Wait.
on
Oh,
Big
yeah.
Green.
Um. Yeah, because let's just put up a seawall. Doesn't really necessarily. You know how big your seawall would have. It's just. God, it's just like, oh my god, let's make a giant seawall. Um, to try and solve our problem instead of just, you know, fixing our energy and not having to deal with this problem that's going to become increasingly worse and worse and like kill our oceans and like cause all these problems. And instead, we're just gonna like God, God, it's such like a it's like the only path that PragerU can really use to talk about this problem anymore is to basically be like, well, what if we use these other things that kind of like show that we're acknowledging it, but aren't really solving the problem. They're just kind of addressing the symptoms of the problem. Um, and it's like, no, we can't. We have to actually like try and solve like the actual problem. Like if you like, like in any other instance, if you were to just address the symptoms of things, like if I have like a I don't know, some kind of like cold or something, and I'm just trying to address the symptoms instead of like trying to get better, you'd be like, what in the world is wrong with you? What are you doing? And the same thing applies here. Like, what in the world?
You don't raise money off of common sense, and you don't get political power telling people how good things are.
You literally do. You literally do get political power telling people how good things are. How do you think people get reelected? You don't get reelected if things are bad. Trump didn't, if, like, Trump lost because things were bad. Like, because he made things bad. He butchered a coronavirus pandemic response. Like, this isn't you can literally, I mean, didn't Reagan went in a landslide because he had like ads about how good the country was doing at that moment. Like you literally can get political power by saying how good things are. Like that's kind of what all politicians hope for when
And you
they're in power.
certainly don't become famous by being calm. Big Green is not poor,
um
not
mm,
honest, and
I
certainly
mean, you
not
can.
powerless. It's time we all plug into that
It's
truth.
not honest.
I'm
Good
Rogan
lord.
O'Hanley, aka DC Drano, for Prager
I don't
University.
know who DC
Thank
Drano
you
is,
for
but he
watching this
seems
video.
lame. Cool. Well, that's fun stuff. Great. Excellent. Definitely, definitely Big Green is the problem. They intend to protect nature. This must be a personal attack. Yeah, who would have thought? Yeah, exactly. I miss when we were heading into an ice age. I don't think we ever were. Oh my god, that's true. Wow, it's so weird. Yeah, that's what I was pointing out, right? Exactly. One video. Exactly. Steve Wilkes. Yeah, it doesn't like green companies. They got beef against the WWF. Let's see, what's going on? Oil baron money. Yeah, they have beef against a lot of people. True. Look at this. A comment section that passes the test. All right, excellent. Well, that'll do it for me for this time, I think. Thank you, everyone, and I'll be back again soon.